Today's topic is glycine metabolism. Glycine is the simplest of all amino acid, and it is glucogenic, and it is optically inactive because it is not having a asymmetric carbon atom. It is the simplest of all amino acids. Chemically, it is aminoacetic acid, and nutritionally non-essential amino acid. So it can be synthesized in our body, and optically inactive as there is no asymmetric carbon atom. So you can see here there is no asymmetric carbon atom in this glycine, and it is glucogenic. Now we'll see what are the functions of glycine. Glycine is one among the common amino acids found in the protein structure, just like any other amino acid. And glycine is seen where the polypeptide bends or turns, that is beta loops and beta bends and loops. And collagen contains a very high content, that is about 30% of glycine. So in the collagen, that amino acid content is about 30%. And next function is the glycine participate in the 1-carbon metabolism. Third function is the glycine is involved in the synthesis of many specialized biologically important products like purine base synthesis, glutathione synthesis, creatine synthesis, then bile salt formation, and heme synthesis, that is first step in the heme synthesis, then synthesis of serine amino acid, and hippuric acid formation, that is used for the conjugation, and then it acts as a neurotransmitter, and it is also synthesized glyoxylic acid, and it is used for the formation of collagen. So in the protein, glycine is important for the formation of collagen. So we will see how it is important in the collagen formation. A triple helical structure of collagen is usually stabilized by the abundance of the 3 amino acids, mainly glycine, proline, and hydroxyproline. So the amino acid made the characteristic repeating units usually are glycine, proline, and an X, that is X amino acid, that is X may be any amino acid. So glycine, proline, or any other amino acid that is forming the repeating units usually in the collagen formation. Usually the hydrogen atom is the only one of which can fit into the crowded center of the 3-stranded helix of the collagen. So only the H atom of glycine can fit into the crowded center of the 3-stranded helix of collagen. You might have studied collagen has got a triple helical structure. This H bond linking the polypeptide bond of an amide of the glycine residue with a polypeptide carbonyl of another adjacent polypeptide chain can form a twist together to form the 3-stranded helix. So that is how they forms a triple helix, and it can be stabilized also. So glycine can stabilize the rigid 3-stranded collagen helix. So that is an important function or the glycine in the forming the protein structure, collagen formation. Now in this diagram also you can see all these things used for the protein serine formation. It produces oxalate, glucogenic, so it is producing it can produce glucose and ammonia, a catabolic product of amino acid, then can form formate, which is entering the 1-carbon pool, and then purine, glutathione, and for the conjugation it is used, and for the heme synthesis and for the creatine synthesis. Now we'll pass on to the metabolism, that is synthesis of glycine. So sometimes the question may come, name the optically inactive amino acid and write the synthesis and catabolism of glycine. So you have to know which is the amino acid which is optically inactive. So synthesis of glycine, that is mainly from serine, that is by one carbon transfer by the tetrahydrofolic acid. Then second, from the threonine amino acid by the threonine aldolase enzyme. And third, by combining carbon dioxide, ammonia, and one carbon unit, that is methylene tetrahydrofolic acid, by the action of glycine synthase. Then from the glyoxylate, by the transaminase enzyme, glyoxylate can be transaminated with glutamate or alanine to form the glycine. Then from choline. These are the five steps or five methods by which glycine can be synthesized in our body. In this picture, you can see the synthesis of glycine from various sources. From serine amino acid, that is beta carbon of the serine is channeled to the one carbon pole by the tetrahydrofolic acid, and alpha carbon is converted to glycine by the enzyme serine hydroxymethyl transferase. So here you can see serine is converted to glycine. Tetrahydrofolic acid takes up the beta carbon and it is forming N5N10 methylene tetrahydrofolic acid. Next is threonine. By the action of threonine aldolase, it is converted to glycine. So the acetaldehyde is released. In the third one, the carbon dioxide and ammonia combines to form the glycine with the help of the N5-N10 methylene tetrahydrofolic acid and by the enzyme glycine synthase. And then from the glyoxylate by transamination, if it is from the using alanine, it can be converted to pyruvate and glycine. If it is using glutamate, then it can be alpha ketoglutarate and glycine. If it is combining with serine, then it is converted to hydroxypyruvate and glycine with the help of transaminase enzyme. It is a transamination reactions. Glyoxylate combined with any of these three, and the product will be glycine and any of the three. Now here you can see how the serine is converted to glycine, serine hydroxymethyl transferase, which is a PLP dependent, pyridoxal phosphate dependent enzyme, and converted to glycine. Alpha carbon is converted to glycine, beta carbon is going to the form the N5N10 methylene tetrahydrofolic acid, which is entering the one carbon pole. The synthesis of glycine from choline. First, choline, choline is a trimethyl ethanolamine. Choline is first converted to betaine aldehyde, then it is converted to betaine, that is trimethyl glycine. Then trimethyl glycine is converted to dimethyl glycine by removal of methyl group. Again, it is converted to sarcosine, which is monomethyl glycine, which is seen in the muscle. And finally, sarcosine is converted to glycine. That is another pathway by which glycine is formed from choline. Now we'll pass on to the catabolism of glycine. So first we have first seen that glycine is synthesized from the ammonia and carbon dioxide by the glycine synthase enzyme. The reversal of this enzyme, that is by glycine cleavage system, glycine can be converted to ammonia and carbon dioxide, where NAD and tetrahydrofolic acid is used as the coenzyme. So it is the reversal of the glycine synthase enzyme action, and it is the major catabolic pathway of glycine. Second is glycine is converted to serine by serine hydroxymethyl transferase, and then the serine is acted upon by serine dehydratase to form the pyruvate. Then on deamination, and it is converted to water is removed, and then it is converted to pyruvate. Then pyruvate can be converted to glucose. Then third one is glycine transaminase reaction, where glycine combines with alpha ketoglutarate in presence of transaminase enzyme, forms the glyoxylate and glutamate, and glyoxylate on oxidation forms oxalate, and it can be excreted through urine. So the major catabolic pathway of glycine is by glycine cleavage system. It is the major catabolic pathway. Glycine cleavage system is a multi-enzyme complex and it has got enzymes like glycine decarboxylase, aminomethyl transferase, methylene tetrahydrofolate synthase, and the lipomere dehydrogenase enzyme bound to H protein. So these are the enzymes present in the glycine cleavage multi-enzyme complex. The enzymes are together called the glycine synthase complex. A reversible reaction occurs in the liver mitochondria. So it's synthesis and the catabolism, the same enzyme. Synthesis, it is called glycine synthase enzyme, and when it is cleavage and during catabolism, it is also known as glycine cleavage system. So the components are glycine decarboxylase, aminomethyl transferase, methyl tetrahydrofolate synthase, and lipomere dehydrogenase. So here this enzyme is acting in an enzyme complex manner. Glycine first undergo oxidative deamination, that is reversal of glycine synthase to form ammonia and carbon dioxide. And the one carbon compound methylene tetrahydrofolic acid. So this is an oxidative deamination reaction where carbon dioxide, ammonia, and methylene tetrahydrofolic acid are formed. It is acting as a multi-enzyme complex. Glycine decarboxylase with pyridoxal phosphate removes the carbon dioxide from glycine. So in the first step, glycine decarboxylate acts and produces carbon dioxide. Then the aminomethyl transferase enzyme containing lipomide, which releases then ammonia. So in next step, aminomethyl transferase enzyme along with the lipomide releases ammonia. Then methylene tetrahydrofolate synthase, which is transfers the methylene group to tetrahydrofolic acid and so forms the methylene tetrahydrofolic acid. Then the NAD dependent lipomere dehydrogenase reaction, which regenerates the lipomere. So here this enzyme D, that is lipomere dehydrogenase enzyme, will regenerate the lipomere so that again it can act on the aminomethyl transferase enzyme. So like this, glycine cleavage system acts, and finally carbon dioxide and ammonia and the methylene tetrahydrofolic acid is produced. So this is the major catabolism of glycine. Next is the oxidation of glycine to form aminoacetone is an alternative pathway of glycine oxidation. Enzyme is aminoacetone synthetase in presence of acetyl coenzyme. So glycine in presence of acetyl coenzyme and the enzyme aminoacetone synthetase produces aminoacetone. This aminoacetone is further metabolized through the methyl glyoxal to lactic acid and the pyruvic acid. So then the aminoacetone further metabolized through the methyl glyoxal to lactic acid and pyruvic acid. Now we'll pass on to the functions. Now we have finished the catabolism and the synthesis of glycine. Okay, now we'll pass on to the functions of glycine. Glycine is a constituent of protein, we already mentioned, and it is the principle. It can participate in one carbon metabolism, and glycine involved in the synthesis of many specialized products. Special metabolic functions, formation of purine ring. So the whole of the glycine molecule is incorporated in the purine ring. So entire glycine is utilized for the formation of C4, that is carbon number 4, carbon number 5, and the nitrogen 7 of purine. Here you can see carbon number 4, carbon number 5, and nitrogen 7 of the purine is formed by the whole of the glycine. So glycine as a whole is incorporated for the formation of this C4, C5, and N7 of purine base. Then biosynthesis of creatine. Next is the synthesis of creatine. Creatine is present mainly in the muscle. That is 95% is in the muscle, rest is in the brain or heart. Creatine constitutes about 0.5% of the total muscle weight. The three amino acids which is used for the synthesis of creatine are glycine, arginine, and methionine. So, three amino acids used for the synthesis of creatine are glycine, arginine, and methionine. So, synthesis of creatine is very important. It's an important product, and specialized products are synthesized by the glycine. So, you have to study the pathway thoroughly. Okay. Now, the first step in the synthesis of creatine is the guanidino group or guanido group of arginine is transferred to the glycine, condensed with glycine to form the guanidoacetate, which is taking part mainly in the kidney. It is mainly in the kidney and also in the pancreas, mitochondria, kidney, and pancreas. Now, in the next step, methyl group is transferred from acetylmethionine to the guanido group of guanidoacetate to form the creatine, that is by the enzyme guanidoacetate methyl transferase. So that reaction is taking place mainly in the liver. So the first reaction is taking place in the kidney, and the second reaction is taking place in the liver. So first reaction, amidino group of arginine is condensing with the glycine to form the guanidoacetate, that is by the arginine glycine transamidinase enzyme. Then the guanidoacetate on getting methylated by acetylmethionine by the guanidoacetate methyl transferase, which is taking place in the liver to form the creatine. Now the creatine is formed. In the next step, the creatine acted upon by the creatine kinase enzyme with the hydrolysis of ATP to form the creatine phosphate or phosphocreatine. So hydrolysis of ATP occurs and the PI is added on to the creatine to form the creatine phosphate, which is taking place mainly in the muscle. So after formation in the muscle, creatine is converted to creatine phosphate, and the creatine can be spontaneously converted or cyclized to form the creatinine, that is anhydride of creatine is the creatinine. Again, creatine phosphate also can be spontaneously converted to creatinine, which is the excretory product of creatine. So from the creatine phosphate, creatinine is formed. That creatinine is the anhydride of the creatine. That is, creatine and water is removed, creatinine is formed, which is excreted through urine. So the whole pathway is glycine combines with arginine to form the ornithine and guanidoacetates by the enzyme transaminase. Then the guanidoacetate methyl group is added from the acetylmethionine, which is the methyl group donor, by the methyl transferase enzyme to form the creatine, methyl guanidoacetase. Then creatine on action with ATP forms phosphocreatine or the creatine phosphate, and then the creatine phosphate is converted to creatinine spontaneously. An anhydride of creatine phosphate is creatine and it is excreted in the urine. So the pathway is very important. So here also you can see creatine plus ATP, creatine kinase enzyme forming the phosphocreatine or creatine phosphate. Similarly, creatine can be spontaneously or non-enzymatically converted to creatinine, and similarly phosphocreatine also can be spontaneously converted to creatinine. So creatine and the creatine phosphate can be converted to creatinine, which is excreted through the urine. Now you have studied about the creatine kinase, right? Creatine kinase is responsible for the generation of energy in the contractile muscular tissue. The creatine kinase level is changed in the disorders of cardiac and the skeletal muscle disease. You have studied CKMB is the cardiac biomarker, and creatine kinase MM is increased, level is increased in the muscular dystrophy. So it is of importance, creatine kinase. So here you can see the reaction. Again, the creatinine is converted to creatine phosphate where the ATP is hydrolyzed and creatine phosphate is formed. Then this creatine phosphate is again converted back to creatine. When the ATP is finished, then again the regeneration of ATP is by the creatine phosphate. Phosphoric acid group is added on to the ADP to form the ATP. So in the muscle, it acts as a buffer for stock for energy. So this reaction is called the Lohmann's reaction. So when there is contraction, muscular contraction in the muscle, the first ATP is hydrolyzed and the energy is obtained. Then the creatine phosphate is formed. Once the ATP is finished, then the regeneration of ATP is done by the hydrolysis of creatine phosphate again by the creatine kinase where phosphate is added on to the ADP to form the ATP. So again ATP is synthesized. So this reaction is called the Lohmann's reaction which is occurring in the muscle. So it can be an important reaction. It can be asked as a 2-mark question, that is Lohmann's reaction in the muscle due to vigorous contraction. Energy, it is creatine. ATP is the major buffer stock of energy in the muscle. So during contraction, it may be hydrolyzed and used, and the PI is added on to the creatine. Phosphate is formed. Then once the ATP is finished, the regeneration of ATP is again done by the hydrolysis of this buffer stuff called creatine phosphate. High energy phosphate bond is released and added on to the ADP to form the ATP. So again the ATP is synthesized for the energy. So this reaction is known as Lohmann's reaction. Now we'll see the significance of creatine and creatine phosphate. Both serves as intracellular buffers of ATP. There is spontaneous loss of both creatinine. So there is a loss of creatine and creatine phosphate to creatinine, which leads to the increased requirement of creatine through the diet or through the endogenous source. That is, when always the creatine or creatine phosphate is used up in the muscular contraction and it is converted to creatinine and excreted. So there will be requirement of creatinine every time. So how will you get the creatine? By the creatine uh, synthesize or by the through the diet. So creatine actually present in the vegetarian diet. The purely non-vegetarian diet contains the creatine. So children, we have to take non-vegetarian diet or in the body we have to synthesize creatine. So we require glycine, arginine and methionine in large quantities. In children, with inborn error of the synthesis or transport shows some neurological symptoms. So, usually because it is present in the brain also, large dose of creatine monohydrates are taken by the athletes as an ergonic supplement. So, usually creatine monohydrate are taken by athletes as a ergogenic supplement. So for to get the energy, creatine monohydrate is usually taken by the athletes. Now the degradation, we have studied how it is degraded. Creatine phosphate and the creatine both are converted to creatinine, and which is the anhydride of creatine and it is taken through the plasma and excreted through urine through the glomerular filtrate. Now the values, blood level of both are very constant as long as the muscle mass is not affected. So it is mainly present in the muscle creatine. So the level usually are constant. And the serum level of creatinine is 0.2 to 0.6 milligram per deciliter. Creatinine is 0.7 to 1.4 milligram per deciliter. The urine creatinine is very low, that is 0 to 50 milligrams per day, and the creatinine in the urine is 1 to 2 grams per day. So excretion of creatinine is 1 to 2 grams per day, and the serum creatinine level is 0.7 to 1.4 milligram per deciliter, and very small quantity of creatine is present in the blood and urine. Creatinine is an anhydride of creatine and formed by the spontaneous cyclization of creatine. So here you can see a flow chart, diagnostic function of creatinine. What is the importance of estimation of creatinine in the blood? If the kidneys are damaged or impaired and cannot work normally, the amount of creatinine in urine goes down while the level of the blood goes up. So blood level of creatinine will be increased in the renal damage. So it is used as a renal function test, estimation of serum creatinine. Creatinine has been found to be fairly reliable indicator of the kidney function. Serum creatinine level is important diagnostic tool to assess the renal function. So, if the kidney is damaged, there is impaired excretion of creatinine. So, the blood level of the creatinine will be more. So, we are estimating the serum creatinine as a renal function test. Approximately 2% of the body's creatinine is converted to creatinine every day. So in the muscle, mainly present in the muscle, and after metabolism, it is 2% is usually excreted as creatinine every day. Creatinine is transported through the bloodstream to the kidney. The kidneys filter out most of the creatinine and excreted in the urine. So same, the creatine spontaneous cyclization, creatinine and excreted through urine. Here also you can see the same whole metabolism of creatine formation and then the excretion as the creatine, that is arginine glycine to form guanidinoacetate. Guanidinoacetate on methylation forms the creatine, and creatine is converted to phosphocreatine and its cyclization forms the creatine. Now the clinical importance. Estimation of the creatinine is used as a diagnostic test to assess the renal function. Serum creatinine level is increased in renal disease, and it is a very sensitive renal function test. In muscular dystrophy, serum creatine level and the urinary creatinine levels are increased. Remember, it is only the creatine, not the creatinine. Serum creatinine level increased in the renal function impaired, and the muscular dystrophy serum creatine levels are increased and the urinary creatinine also increased. Increased output of creatine, that is called the creatinuria, is found in output of creatinuria is seen in muscular dystrophy, diabetes mellitus, hypothyroidism and starvation. In all these conditions, there is increased output of creatinine in urine, that is creatinuria. Now we have studied about the formation of creatine and the metabolism and the importance of estimation of serum creatine and urinary creatine. Now other metabolic functions of glycine, synthesis of heme. This delta aminolevulinic acid synthase condense the glycine with succinyl coenzyme A to form the delta aminolevulinic acid. So the glycine condenses with the succinyl coenzyme A to form delta aminolevulinic acid. The enzyme is ALA synthase or the aminolevulinic acid synthase. Delta aminolevulinic acid serves as a precursor for the heme synthesis. So this is the first step in the heme synthesis, and it is the rate limiting step in the heme synthesis. So the enzyme is aminolevulinic acid synthase, and it condenses the glycine with succinyl coenzyme A to form delta aminolevulinic acid, which is the first product, precursor for the heme synthesis. Succinyl coenzyme A plus glycine forming delta aminolevulinic acid by the ALA synthase enzyme. Next is glycine acting as a conjugating agent. So it is acting as a conjugating. Bile acids are conjugated with glycine. The main bile acids which are conjugated with glycine are glycocolate and glycosinodeoxycholate. Cholic acid with the glycine to form glycocholic acid. Cholic acid with glycine to form glycosinodeoxycholic acid. So these two are the bile salts formed by the conjugation of glycine with the bile acid, cholic acid and phenodeoxycholic acid. You know the importance of bile salts, which are used for the digestion and absorption of lipids. Now, next is the detoxification of benzoic acid to hippuric acid. That is again a detoxification reaction. That is the formation of non detoxification means the conversion of a toxic substance in the body to non-toxic, easily excretable substance. So detoxification of benzoic acid to hippuric acid is by the glycine, conjugation with the glycine. So what is the use of benzoic acid? Small quantities are used in food industries to increase the shelf life of the food. So it may be used in the food industries as a preservative. So when the level is small, it has to be conjugated and excreted. So this is occurred by the detoxification by the glycine. So here you can see benzoic acid is converted to benzoyl coenzyme and plus glycine to form the hippuric acid, and it is made water soluble and excretable. Then next is the synthesis of glutathione. You know, you have studied what is glutathione. It is a tripeptide. So the synthesis requires glycine. It is formed from 3 amino acids: glutamic acid, cysteine, and glycine. Gamma glutamyl cystinyl glycine is the tripeptide glutathione. So first, glutamic acid with glycine with the help of ATP and gamma glutamyl cystinyl synthase enzyme forms the gamma glutamyl cysteine. So in the first step, 1 ATP is required, and then this glycine is acted upon to the gamma glutamyl cysteine by glutathione synthase enzyme. Again, one more molecule of ATP is taken, and it is forming glutathione, that is gamma glutamyl cystinyl glycine. So the synthesis of glutathione requires glycine. So you can see glutamate, cysteine, gamma glutamyl cysteine synthase enzyme requiring 1 ATP forming gamma glutamyl cysteine. Again, glycine is added, glutamine synthetase enzyme, one more molecule of ATP is required to form the gamma glutamyl cystinyl glycine or the glutathione. Now, what are the important functions of glutathione? Glutathione usually asked as short note with formation and their significance or the functions. To maintain the membrane integrity of RBC and amino acid transport, you might have studied in the digestion and absorption Meesters cycle, where the glutathione is helping in the transport of amino acid into the cell. Then preservation of active site of the enzyme with SH group. Those enzymes having SH group in the active site, they are preserved, their active sites are preserved by the glutathione. Then they are involved in the phase 3 conjugation reaction in detoxification. So glutathione again used for the conjugation of detoxification reactions. Then glutathione is acting as a coenzyme. It has got a coenzyme role. Then it has got a reducing agent. It is acting as a reducing agent. That is reduced glutathione is, this is the reduced GSH is reduced glutathione. It is converted to oxidized glutathiones. So hydrogen is used for reducing other substrate. Example, mallyl acetoacetate is converted to fumaryl acetoacetate, where the reduced glutathione is used. Again, citric acid is converted to taurine. There also reduced glutathione is used, and it is reduced. Citric acid is reduced to taurine. Then iodine is converted to hydrogen iodide, and the oxidized glutathione is formed. So these are some of the reactions where glutathione is acting as a reducing agent in the tissues. So there are so many functions for this molecule, tripeptide glutathione, and you have to study the important functions and how it is synthesized, which are the amino acids used for the synthesis of glutathione. Now the special metabolic functions. Glycine is acting as a neurotransmitter. We have already mentioned it. Glycine is seen in the brainstem and the spinal cord. It opens the chloride channels in the brain. That is, usually it opens the chloride specific channels in the brain and spinal cord. And in moderate amounts, glycine inhibits the neuronal traffic, but at high level, it causes overexcitation. So if in the normal level, it usually inhibits the neuronal traffic, but if the level is high, glycine level is very high, then it will produces overexcitation. So this is the picture where the overall glycine metabolism is shown, how glycine is formed from protein degradation from serine, from carbon dioxide, ammonia and one carbon together by glycine synthase, then formation of functions mainly for proteins, that is collagen formation, then excreted as ammonia and ammonia converted to urea and excreted. It used for the synthesis of serine. Serine can be converted to pyruvate by serine dehydratase. Pyruvate is finally converted to glucose through gluconeogenesis. Then choline formation from glycine and glyoxylic acid, and it is converted to oxalate. Creatine is synthesized, creatine converted to creatine phosphate, and finally excreted as creatinine. And the whole of the glycine is used for the synthesis of purine ring, that is C4, C5 and nitrogen 7 of the purine is contributed by the glycine. Then for the synthesis of delta amino levulinic acid in the heme synthesis, that is first step where the glycine condenses with succinyl coenzyme to form the ALA. Then for the synthesis of glutathione by cysteine and glutamic acid, and then for the detoxification reaction and formation of bile salts, and detoxification by formation of hippuric acid. Benzoic acid is conjugated with glycine to form hippuric acid. Now we'll pass on to the metabolic disorders of glycine. First one is glycinuria. It is a rare disorder. It is a very rare disorder. Very high amount of glycine is excreted in urine, that is 600 milligram per deciliter. 2000 milligram per deciliter is excreted in this condition. It's an autosomal dominant inheritance, and a defect is in the renal reabsorption of glycine. Here the defect is not an enzymatic defect, it is a defect in the renal reabsorption of glycine, okay? Characterized by increased tendency for the formation of oxalate renal stones. So in this case, finally, if there is excess glycine, it will be converted to oxalate, and oxalate stones are seen in the kidneys. This is the oxalate nephropathy stone. Second important disorder is non-ketotic hyperglycinemia. The glycine level is increased in blood, urine and CSF. Here, the level of glycine is increased in blood, urine and CSF. Defect is in the glycine cleavage system, that is catabolism is affected, and several mental there will be severe mental retardation and seizures are also seen. When high levels of glycine is there, there is seizures developing. Treatment is intake of diet free of glycine. So you have to restrict the glycine containing diet. So another method of treatment is administration of strychnine, a commutative inhibitor of glycine, and administration of sodium benzoate reduces plasma level of glycine. So, but the disease is very rare. The most important metabolic disorder of glycine is primary hyperoxaluria type 1. So it came once or twice for the university exam, the primary hyperoxaluria type 1. It is characterized by increased urinary oxalate excretion. Here the excretion of urinary oxalate is very much increased. Usually the normal excretion is only up to 50 milligram per day, but in this case up to 600 milligram per day is excreted. Oxalosis is also observed in this oxalosis, tissue containing oxalate crystals. Oxaluria is due to the increased production of oxalate. So here the oxaluria is due to the increased production of oxalate. Then how this oxalate is produced in increased amount? A failure to catabolize glyoxylates, that is, we have seen glycine can be converted to glyoxylate and finally to oxalate. So if the glyoxylate, usually glyoxylate is again converted back to glycine by the alanine glyoxylate aminotransferase. By transamination reaction, the glyoxylate is either combined with alanine forming pyruvate and glycine, or by the glutamate forming alpha ketoglutarate and glycine, or by serine to form hydroxypyruvate and glycine. So that is usually happening, that glyoxylate may be transaminated back to glycine. Suppose this enzyme is not functioning properly, what happens is glyoxylate will be converted to oxalate and the oxalate level will be increased. So it is actually not the enzyme deficiency. The enzyme defect is due to the defect in the protein targeting. What is the meaning of protein targeting? We have studied in the cell, the protein is, after synthesis, it is targeted to the various organs, isn't it? So suppose they are going to the wrong direction and reaching the wrong place where it is not active. So that is what happening in this condition. This is due to the deficiency of alanine glycosate transaminase. Glycosate is unable to convert it to glycine, but it is converted to oxalate. That is the thing happening. Due to the defect in protein targeting, the enzyme is present in the mitochondria instead of normal site in peroxisome. So usually this reaction is taking place in the peroxisomes of the cell. That is, the aminotransferase enzyme is acting on glyoxylate and producing glycine is occurring in the peroxisomes of the cells. But due to protein targeting defect, this enzyme will reach mitochondria, and in the mitochondria the enzyme is inactive. So there is no action for this enzyme. So it is not converted to glycine, instead it is converted to oxalate. The enzyme is inactive in mitochondria and leads to primary hyperoxaluria. So it will produce more of oxalic acid, oxalate, and that is will be excreted, and that condition is called the primary hyperoxaluria. Calcium oxalate deposits occurs in the extrarenal tissues also. In this case, extrarenal tissues also there will be deposition of crystals, calcium oxalate crystals, that is seen in heart, blood vessels and muscles. So this is the picture where you can see glyoxylate, it going to the oxalate instead of going back to the glycine. This is the transamination amidotransferase enzyme which is reaching the mitochondria instead of going to the peroxisome, and due to the protein targeting effect. Oxalate deposit in various tissues. Now the fourth type of metabolic disorder of glycine is type 2 primer hyperoxaluria. It is a milder condition due to defect in the activity of cytoplasmic glyoxylate reductase enzyme. Here the defect is in the cytoplasmic glyoxylate reductase, that is the previous, this is the reductase enzyme. This enzyme is deficient. So it causes urolithiasis, again produces stones. Now the principles of management of hyperoxaluria. Hyperoxaluria is the most important inborn error in the glycine metabolism. How will you manage? You have to increase the water intake to increase the excretion of oxalate. Increase water intake to increase the oxalate excretion. Minimize dietary intake of oxalate. Oxalates are seen in the fiber vegetarian diet mainly. So minimize the dietary intake of oxalate and restrict the intake mainly leafy vegetables, beetroot, tomatoes, spinaches, tea and cocoa, etc. So these are the food diet which contains rich glycine. So we have to restrict this. Restrict leafy vegetables, beetroot, tomatoes, spinaches, tea, cocoa, which are having high contents of oxalates. So this is the picture where you can see the overall metabolic pathways and products formed from glycine. So important question is, what are the important substance derived from glycine? Describe their steps of formation. So sometimes they will ask any one product, the steps of any one product or two products. Usually they will ask enumerate the important products formed from glycine and also important functions of these products sometimes. So you have to study the functions of creatine, creatine phosphate, then glutathione, etc. So you can write the function also. Then sometimes they will ask synthesis and catabolism of glycine as such. So various steps of synthesis, various types. Then the catabolism, mainly glycine cleavage system, that you have to explain that regarding the multi-enzyme complex, etc. So here glycine is formed, it is a glucogenic amino acid. So first serine is formed, pyruvate and glucose is then formed. Then creatine is important product, creatine phosphate, then one carbon pool, it is going. Then purine, C4, C5 and N7. To the first step in the heme, that is delta aminolevulinic acid is synthesized by condensing the succinyl coenzyme A plus with glycine. Then glutathione is formed, gamma glutamyl cysteine glycine, that is forming glycine, creatine, glycine, then cysteine and glutamic acid together. Then bile salt formation, glycocolate and glycosinodeoxycholate. Then conjugation, that benzoic acid is conjugated with glycine to form hippuric acid and excreted. Then for the collagen, every third amino acid of collagen is made by glycine. It is important for the stabilization of triple helical structure of collagen and also for the formation of proteins. Okay.